The darkness was almost palpable, a living, breathing entity that wrapped itself around the team as they crept deeper into the facility. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and burned wiring, the result of their careful sabotage of the security systems. The team moved swiftly, their footsteps echoing off the cold, gray walls as they made their way deeper into the heart of the complex. Their mission was to retrieve a valuable piece of technology, one that could change the course of human history. But they were not the only ones after it, and they knew they had to move fast if they were to succeed. Rostova's voice was low and steady as she spoke into the comms device. "Team, we have you on camera. You are approaching the inner sanctum. Be advised, there are laser beams crisscrossing the room. You will need to time your movements carefully to avoid detection." Ben's voice cut in, his tone calm and collected. "I'm reading multiple hostiles in the area. They are heavily armed and look like they mean business. You will need to take them out quickly and quietly if you are to succeed." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew what they had to do and they were ready to do it. They moved forward, their movements swift and precise, dodging and weaving between the laser beams with ease. As they reached the far side of the room, they were confronted with a new challenge, a biometric scanner that blocked their path. It was a state-of-the-art device, one that used advanced facial recognition software to identify potential threats. The team knew they had to bypass it if they were to reach their target, but they also knew it would not be easy. The stakes were higher than ever, time was running out, and every mistake would be fatal. The team's training was about to be put to the ultimate test, and they knew they had to work together seamlessly if they were to succeed. They relied on each other's strengths, using their unique skills to overcome the obstacles in their path. The mission's success hung in the balance, and one wrong move would mean failure. But the team forged ahead, undaunted and focused, their determination driving them forward. They were a well-oiled machine, working together with precision and skill, and they would stop at nothing to achieve their goal. The biometric scanner loomed before them, its cold, mechanical eye glinting in the dim light. The team knew they had to act fast to come up with a plan to bypass the device before it was too late. They conferred quickly, their voices low and urgent as they tried to come up with a solution. And then, in a flash of inspiration, they had it, a plan to outsmart the scanner and reach their target. It was a risk, a gamble, but it was one they had to take. The team steeled themselves, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they prepared to put their plan into action. They knew it would not be easy, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And with a deep breath, they launched themselves into the unknown, their fate hanging precariously in the balance. The team's plan was to use a combination of stealth and technological trickery to bypass the biometric scanner. They quickly got to work, using their skills to hack into the device's mainframe and create a temporary blind spot in its surveillance. It was a delicate process, one that required precision and patience, but the team was confident in their abilities. They worked together seamlessly, their movements fluid and practiced as they bypassed the scanner's defenses. Rostova's voice came over the comms device, her tone urgent. "Team, we're reading increased activity in the area. You need to move fast. The hostiles are closing in on your position, and you're running out of time." Ben's voice cut in, his words laced with a sense of caution. "Remember, the scanner is just the first line of defense. There will be more challenges ahead. You need to stay sharp and stay focused if you're going to make it out of there alive." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew the risks, but they were undaunted, driven by their mission to retrieve the valuable technology. They moved forward, their movements swift and precise as they slipped past the biometric scanner. The air was thick with tension as they made their way deeper into the facility. The team's hearts were pounding in their chests, their senses on high alert as they navigated the treacherous terrain. They knew they were getting close to their target, and they could feel the excitement building inside them. But they also knew they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. One wrong move would mean detection, and detection would mean failure. The team moved forward, their movements fluid and practiced, as they approached the door to the inner sanctum. They could feel the weight of their mission bearing down on them, the fate of humanity hanging precariously in the balance. The door was heavily reinforced, a thick steel barrier that looked almost impenetrable. But the team was not deterred. They knew they had to get through it if they were to succeed. They quickly got to work, using their technological expertise to disable the door's locking mechanism. It was a difficult process, one that required patience and skill, but the team was up to the challenge. As they worked, Rostova's voice came over the comms device, her tone steady and reassuring. Team, we're monitoring your progress. You're doing great. Just a little further and you'll be at the target. Ben's voice cut in, his words laced with caution. Remember, the hostiles are closing in. You need to move fast. You don't have much time before they register. Ask him for summary was clear. The team had to move quickly if they were to succeed. They knew the risks, but they were driven by their mission, and they were determined to see it through. With a final burst of speed, they disabled the locking mechanism, and the door slid open with a hiss. The team moved forward, their movements swift and decisive as they entered the inner sanctum. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of electronics and burned wiring. The team moved forward, their eyes scanning the space as they searched for their target. And then, in the center of the room, they saw it, a large server tower, its lights blinking with an otherworldly intensity. The team knew they had finally reached their goal. The valuable technology was within their grasp. But as they approached the server, they were confronted with a new challenge, a heavily armed guard, his eyes fixed intently on them. The team froze, their movements suspended as they assessed the situation. They knew they had to take out the guard quietly, without alerting the rest of the facility to their presence. It was a difficult task, one that would require skill and precision, but the team was up to the challenge. They worked together seamlessly, their movements fluid and practiced as they took down the guard. It was a swift and silent operation, one that required patience and skill. The team moved forward, their hearts still pounding with excitement as they approached the server tower. They knew they were close to achieving their mission, and they were driven by a sense of determination. The server tower loomed before them, its lights blinking with an intense blue light. The team quickly got to work, using their technological expertise to hack into the server's mainframe. It was a delicate process, one that required precision and care, but the team was confident in their abilities. They worked swiftly, their fingers flying across their keyboards as they bypassed the server's security measures. And then, in a burst of light, the server's mainframe came online, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. The team held their breath, their hearts pounding with excitement as they accessed the server's contents. They knew they were on the verge of retrieving the valuable technology, and they were driven by a sense of anticipation. But as they delved deeper into the server's mainframe, they realized that something was not quite right. The data they were looking for was not where they expected it to be, and the team was faced with a new challenge. Rostova's voice came over the comms device, her tone laced with concern. Team, we're reading some kind of trap. It looks like the server is rigged to self-destruct. You need to get out of there now. The team's hearts sank, their faces set with determination. They knew they had to act fast to retrieve the technology and get out of there before it was too late. But as they tried to access the data, they realized that the server's security measures were more complex than they had anticipated. The team was faced with a difficult decision, one that would require all their skills and expertise. They could try to outrun the self-destruct sequence, or they could try to disable it. The team knew they had to make a decision quickly, before the server's security measures caught up with them. They worked together, their minds racing with the possibilities, as they tried to come up with a plan. And then, in a flash of inspiration, they had it, a solution to the problem that would require all their skills and cunning. The team quickly got to work, their movements swift and precise as they tried to outsmart the server's security measures. It was a high-stakes gamble, one that would require perfect timing and coordination. But the team was up to the challenge, driven by their mission to retrieve the valuable technology. They worked together seamlessly, their actions fluid and practiced as they navigated the complex web of security measures. The clock was ticking, the seconds counting down to the self-destruct sequence. The team knew they had to move fast to bypass the security measures and retrieve the data before it was too late. They worked with precision and skill, their hearts pounding in their chests as they fought against time. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went silent. The team held their breath, their eyes fixed on the server's mainframe as they waited to see if their plan had worked. The silence was oppressive, the only sound the quiet hum of the server's machinery. The team waited, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they waited to see if they had succeeded. And then, in a burst of light, the server's mainframe flickered back to life. The team let out a collective sigh of relief as they realized they had managed to bypass the security measures. They had done it. They had outsmarted the server's defenses and retrieved the valuable technology. But their mission was far from over. The team knew they still had to get out of the facility and back to their base without being detected. They quickly gathered up the data and made their way back to the door. As they moved, they could hear the sound of alarms blaring and footsteps echoing through the corridors. The hostiles were closing in, and the team knew they had to move fast if they were to escape. Rostova's voice came over the comms device, her tone urgent. "Team, we're reading multiple hostiles heading your way. You need to get out of there now." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew they had to move quickly to escape the facility before it was too late. They made their way back through the corridors, their movements swift and decisive. As they moved, the sound of alarms and footsteps grew louder, and the team knew they were running out of time. But they were driven by their mission, and they were determined to succeed. They pushed forward, their hearts pounding with excitement as they fought to escape the facility. The biometric scanner loomed before them, its cold, mechanical eye glinting in the dim light. The team knew they had to get past it, to bypass its defenses and make a run for the exit. They quickly got to work, using their skills to disable the scanner's security measures. It was a delicate process, one that required precision and care, but the team was up to the challenge. They worked together seamlessly, their movements swift and practiced as they navigated the treacherous terrain. The scanner's lights flickered and died, and the team moved forward, their movements swift and decisive. They were getting close to the exit, and they could feel the rush of excitement building inside them. But as they approached the door, they were confronted with a new challenge, a group of heavily armed guards. The team knew they had to take them out quickly and quietly, without alerting the rest of the facility to their presence. It was a difficult task, one that required skill and precision, but the team was up to the challenge. The guards were well-trained and well-armed, but the team was determined to succeed. They worked together seamlessly, their movements fluid and practiced as they took down the guards. It was a swift and silent operation, one that required patience and skill. The team moved forward, their hearts pounding with excitement as they approached the exit. They knew they were close to escaping the facility, and they were driven by a sense of determination. And then, in a burst of light, they saw it, the exit sign shining like a beacon in the darkness. The team moved forward, their movements swift and decisive as they made a final dash for the exit. They knew they had to move fast to escape the facility before it was too late. The alarms were blaring, and the hostiles were closing in, but the team was undaunted. They pushed forward, their hearts pounding with excitement as they fought to escape the facility. And then, in a burst of speed, they were through the door and out into the night air. The team emerged from the facility, gasping with relief as they looked up at the stars twinkling above them. They had done it, they had retrieved the valuable technology, and they had escaped the facility. But as they looked back at the building, they knew their mission was far from over. They still had to get back to their base and analyze the data they had retrieved. The team quickly regrouped, their faces set with determination. They knew they had to move quickly to get the technology back to their base and unlock its secrets. And so, with a sense of pride and accomplishment, they set off into the night, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The team's plan was to use a combination of hacking and disguise to bypass the biometric scanner. One of the team members, an expert in surveillance and infiltration, would attempt to hack into the scanner system, creating a temporary window of opportunity for the others to pass through. Meanwhile, another team member would use advanced prosthetic masks to disguise themselves as authorized personnel, allowing them to walk through the scanner undetected. The team member responsible for hacking, a young and talented individual known only by their handle, Zero Cool, quickly got to work. They pulled out a custom-built laptop and began to frantically type away, their fingers flying across the keyboard as they worked to breach the scanner's security protocols. Rostova's voice came through the comms device, her tone steady and reassuring. "Team, we are monitoring your progress. You have a small window of opportunity to bypass the scanner. Be advised, there are multiple hostiles closing in on your position. You need to move quickly." Ben's voice cut in, his tone calm and collected. "I'm reading multiple heat signatures. They are moving in on your position. You need to be careful. You don't have much time before you are overwhelmed." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew they had to move fast, to bypass the scanner and reach their target before it was too late. Zero Cool looked up, a look of concentration on their face. I've got access to the scanner system. I can create a temporary window of opportunity, but you need to move fast." The team member wearing the prosthetic mask, a seasoned operative known only as Nova, stepped forward. They took a deep breath, their heart pounding with anticipation as they prepared to walk through the scanner. The mask they wore was incredibly realistic, complete with fake skin and hair, allowing them to blend in seamlessly with the facility's personnel. Nova walked through the scanner, their movements confident and assured. The scanner's light flashed over them, and for a moment the team held their breath, waiting to see if the plan would work. And then the scanner beeped, its light flashing green as it authorized Nova to pass through. The team breathed a collective sigh of relief as Nova walked through the scanner, their plan working perfectly. But they knew they couldn't afford to relax, not yet. They still had to reach their target, and they knew that the facility's security team would stop at nothing to prevent them from doing so. The team moved forward, their movements swift and precise as they made their way deeper into the facility. They knew they were getting close, they could feel it, and they steeled themselves for what was to come. They were about to face their greatest challenge yet, one that would test their skills and their resolve. And they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. No matter the cost, the team's plan was to use a combination of their skills to bypass the biometric scanner. One of the team members, an expert in technology, would attempt to hack into the device's system. At the same time, another team member, a skilled impersonator, would try to mimic the appearance of an authorized individual. The goal was to fool the scanner into thinking that the impersonator was the real deal, thereby gaining access to the restricted area. The team member who was attempting to hack into the system began to frantically type away on her computer. She was trying to find a weakness in the scanner's code, a backdoor that would allow her to manipulate the device. Meanwhile, the impersonator was busy studying the appearance of the authorized individual, trying to perfect every detail. From the way the person walked to the way they smiled, the impersonator practiced and rehearsed, making sure to get everything just right. Rostova's voice came through the comms device, her tone calm and reassuring. "Team, we have you on camera. You are doing great. Just remember to stay focused and work together." Ben's voice cut in, his tone more serious. "I'm reading increased activity in the area. We have multiple hostiles closing in on your position. You need to move fast. You don't have much time." The team nodded, their hearts pounding with anticipation. They knew they had to act quickly to bypass the scanner before the hostiles arrived. The team member who was hacking into the system suddenly let out a triumphant cry. "I'm in, I've found the backdoor, I can control the scanner." The impersonator nodded, a confident smile spreading across their face. "I'm ready, let's do this." The team held their breath as the impersonator stepped forward, their appearance perfectly mimicking that of the authorized individual. The scanner's cold, mechanical eye glinted in the dim light, and for a moment it seemed to hesitate. Then, with a soft beep, the scanner accepted the impersonator as genuine, and the team was granted access to the restricted area. The team let out a collective sigh of relief as they stepped through the doorway. They had done it. They had bypassed the scanner and were one step closer to achieving their goal. But they knew that the mission was far from over, and that the greatest challenges still lay ahead. They steeled themselves, their determination driving them forward as they prepared to face whatever lay in store for them. The restricted area was a maze of corridors and rooms, each one filled with rows of computer servers and technological equipment. The team moved swiftly, their footsteps echoing off the walls as they made their way deeper into the complex. They were getting close. They could feel it, and their excitement grew with every step. Suddenly, they heard the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming from up ahead. The team froze, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they realized they were not alone. Rostova's voice came through the comms device, her tone urgent. "Team, we have multiple hostiles closing in on your position. You need to find cover now." Ben's voice cut in, his tone calm and reassuring. "I've got your backs, team. I'll take out the hostiles. You just focus on the mission." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew what they had to do, and they were ready to do it. They moved forward, their movements swift and precise as they prepared to face whatever lay ahead. The corridors seemed to stretch on forever, a never-ending maze of twists and turns. The team navigated them with ease, their training and experience guiding them through the complex. They were a well-oiled machine, working together with precision and skill, and they would stop at nothing to achieve their goal. As they turned a corner, they caught sight of a door, heavily reinforced and guarded by two heavily armed men. The team knew that this was it. This was the door they had been searching for. They steeled themselves, their determination driving them forward as they prepared to take out the guards and gain access to the room beyond. The guards were alert, their eyes scanning the corridor, and the team knew they had to act fast. They launched themselves into action, their movements swift and deadly as they took out the guards and gained access to the room. The room was small, dimly lit, and filled with rows of computer servers. The team moved swiftly, their footsteps echoing off the walls as they made their way deeper into the room. They were getting close, they could feel it, and their excitement grew with every step. Suddenly they saw it, the valuable piece of technology they had been searching for. It was a small, sleek device filled with complex circuitry and technological equipment. The team knew that this was it. This was what they had been sent to retrieve. They steeled themselves, their determination driving them forward as they prepared to take the device and complete their mission. The team's plan was to use a combination of hacking and social engineering to bypass the biometric scanner. One of the team members, an expert in cybersecurity, quickly got to work, tapping away at a small device in her hand. She was attempting to hack into the scanner system to disable its ability to detect and identify them. At the same time, another team member, an expert in disguise and deception, was preparing to create a diversion. He would pose as a guard, using a stolen uniform and ID to bluff his way past the scanner. The rest of the team would then follow, using the distraction to slip by the scanner undetected. It was a delicate operation, one that required perfect timing and coordination. But the team was confident. They had rehearsed this scenario many times before, and they knew it could work. The hacker's fingers flew across the device, her eyes fixed intently on the screen. She was making good progress, slowly but surely gaining access to the scanner system. The team held their breath, watching as the hacker worked her magic. And then, suddenly, the scanner's light flickered and died, its system crashing under the hacker's assault. The team breathed a sigh of relief. Their plan was working. The guard, posing as one of the facility's security personnel, stepped forward, his ID held out for the scanner to read. But the scanner was down and the guard was able to walk by, unchallenged. The rest of the team followed, their movements swift and silent as they made their way deeper into the facility. They were getting close. They could feel it, the target was within their grasp. But they knew they couldn't afford to get complacent, not yet. There were still many dangers ahead, many obstacles to overcome, and they had to stay focused, stay alert if they were to succeed. The team moved forward, their senses on high alert as they navigated the dark and winding corridors. They were a finely tuned machine, working together with precision and skill. And they would stop at nothing to achieve their goal, to retrieve the valuable technology and escape the facility. As they turned a corner, they caught sight of a door, a large metal door with a sign that read "Authorized Personnel Only." The team exchanged a glance. They knew this was it. This was the entrance to the lab where the technology was stored. They steeled themselves, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they prepared to breach the door. And with a deep breath, they launched themselves forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The door was locked, but the team was prepared. They had the necessary tools, the necessary skills to bypass the lock and gain entry. The hacker quickly got to work, using her device to override the lock's mechanism. And after a few tense moments, the door swung open, revealing a long, dimly lit corridor. The team moved forward, their movements swift and silent as they made their way deeper into the lab. They were getting close, they could feel it. The target was within their grasp, and they knew they had to move fast to retrieve the technology and escape before it was too late. The corridor was lined with doors, each one leading to a different lab or experiment. The team moved quickly, their eyes scanning the signs on the doors as they searched for the one they wanted. And then suddenly they saw it, a door with a sign that read "Project Epsilon." The team exchanged a glance. They knew this was it. This was the lab where the technology was stored. They steeled themselves, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they prepared to breach the door. And with a deep breath, they launched themselves forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The door was locked, but the team was prepared. They had the necessary tools, the necessary skills to bypass the lock and gain entry. The hacker quickly got to work, using her device to override the lock's mechanism. And after a few tense moments, the door swung open, revealing a large, dimly lit room. The team moved forward, their movements swift and silent as they made their way deeper into the room. And then, suddenly, they saw it, a large, cylindrical device surrounded by computers and sensors. The team exchanged a glance. They knew this was it. This was the technology they had come to retrieve. But as they approached the device, they were confronted by a figure, a tall, imposing man with a cold, calculating gaze. He was dressed in a white lab coat, and he looked like he had been expecting them. "Welcome," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I've been waiting for you." The team tensed, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they prepared to face the man. They knew they had to be careful, they knew they had to stay focused, but they were ready, they were prepared to do whatever it took to achieve their goal. and with a deep breath they launched themselves forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The team's plan was to use an advanced device to generate a false biometric signature, one that would fool the scanner into thinking they were authorized personnel. They quickly set to work, their fingers flying across the device's keypad as they input the necessary data. The device hummed to life, emitting a low whine as it generated the false signature. The team held their breath, their eyes fixed on the scanner as they waited to see if their plan would work. The scanner's eye glinted, its lens spinning rapidly as it processed the data. And then, in an instant, the scanner's light turned green, indicating that the team had been cleared to pass. The team let out a collective sigh of relief, their tension easing as they realized they had succeeded. They quickly moved forward, their footsteps echoing off the walls as they made their way deeper into the facility. They knew they were getting close, that their target was within reach. Rostova's voice cut in, her tone urgent. "Team, we have multiple hostiles closing in on your position. You need to move fast. You have a 2-minute window before they breach your location." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew they had to move to get to their target and get out before it was too late. They quickened their pace, their footsteps echoing off the walls as they sprinted towards their goal. As they turned a corner, they saw it, a large metal door with a sign that read "Authorized Personnel Only." The team knew this was it, that their target was behind this door. They quickly set to work, using their advanced tools to bypass the door's security locks. The door slid open, revealing a large room filled with rows of computer terminals and servers. The team's eyes scanned the room, searching for their target. And then they saw it, a large cylindrical device that hummed with energy. The team knew this was it, that this was the technology they had been sent to retrieve. They quickly set to work, using their advanced tools to disconnect the device from the facility's power grid. As they worked, the room began to shake, the lights flickering as the facility's security systems began to fail. The team knew they had to move to get out of the facility before it was too late. They quickly disconnected the device, lifting it off its pedestal as they prepared to make their escape. Rostova's voice cut in, her tone urgent. "Team, you need to get out now. The facility is going into lockdown. You have 1 minute before the doors seal shut." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew they had to move to get out of the facility and back to their extraction point. They quickly turned, sprinting back through the corridors as they fought to escape. The doors slammed shut behind them, the sound echoing off the walls as the facility sealed itself off. The team emerged into the bright sunlight, the cool air hitting them like a slap in the face. They took a deep breath, their eyes scanning the horizon as they searched for any sign of pursuit. And then they saw it, a black helicopter rising into the air as it headed towards them. The team smiled, their faces set with relief. They knew they had made it, that they had succeeded in their mission. They quickly boarded the helicopter, strapping themselves in as it lifted off the ground. As they flew away from the facility, the team couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had done it, they had retrieved the technology and made it out alive. But as they flew off into the distance, the team couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, that there were more challenges ahead, more missions to undertake, and they were ready to face whatever came next. The helicopter disappeared into the distance, the team's fate unknown. But one thing was certain, they would be back, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the team's legend grew, their names becoming synonymous with bravery and skill. The world would never forget the team that had pulled off the impossible, that had retrieved the technology and made it out alive. And though their names would never be known, their actions would be remembered for generations to come. The team's mission had been a success, but it was only the beginning. A new era of exploration and discovery was dawning, and the team was ready to be at the forefront. The helicopter's rotors faded into the distance, the sound of its engines dying away as it disappeared into the night. The team was gone, but their legacy remained, a reminder of what could be accomplished with courage and determination. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, the team's next mission was already being planned, their next adventure waiting just over the horizon.